might finish the course at the end of year 10. So they focus year 11 in English, Maths and Science, because that's considered the core, you know, what schools are judged on and what they're judged on. Robin?
Can you enter all subjects as early as year 9?
Yeah. It just gives me, what we're doing for next year, for example, is all our pupils in year 7 and 8 will follow Key Stage 3. Then in year 9 they begin Key Stage 4, and for 3 years they will do English, Maths and Science over the 3 years. So we had 3 core days, Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So on a Monday, this is not until September 2014, they'll talk about it in September, but on a Monday they'll do English, Maths and Science. On a Wednesday, English, Maths and Science, and on a Friday the same. And then their option days will be Tuesday and Thursday. And so almost, but not every pupil, because remember, not every pupil is able to do it, but almost every pupil will sit their options at the end of year 9. And then they will choose 2 more new options in year 10 and do them for 1 year and do the exam at the end. Likewise in year 11, which means by the time they get to year 11, rather than sit 13 GCSEs, which is ridiculous, they will do their English, Maths and Science and 2 options, so they will need 5. So it will make it much easier to spread it out. But there's no legal prevention that says that you can't enter them when they're ready, even though the government think it's desirable to wait to the end of year 11. But that's a political thing for them and to help out private schools and grammar schools and the people they care about. Okay, then, so that's Key Stage 4, and then hopefully, you know, if anybody going to be teaching Key Stage 5, any of your schools 11 to 18, yeah? So then your pupils very often will stay on, and it is a great, having an A level, and we don't at the minute, but it's something we really want. Having Key Stage 5 is absolutely brilliant. Having those older kids, first of all, it's a joy to teach. You know, they're almost adults. It's a wonderful experience teaching A level, but also the impact that they have on the younger kids as role models is absolutely wonderful. You know, here you have, in the schools that I've worked on with sixth forms, they no longer wear a uniform, but they wear formal suits. And just gives those young people something to aspire to and actually see, you know, their peers moving into A levels, you know, and really gives them something to work towards it and believe that they can actually do it. Now there's changes in A levels you may or may not be aware. You used to be able to do your exam. Again, this is, you know, I hope I'm not coming across as an anti-Tory, but you used to be able to do, so if I was doing, let's say, French, I would do an AS in French, and at the end of year 12, I would do an exam. And let's say, for example, I got a B or I got an A, I would continue and I would do my A2, and that's my whole A level in French. Whereas now they've made the change that you can only sit the exam after the 2 years. And again, it only really works for the more able. You know, if you're only sitting, if you think back, I don't know what type of, I'll give you something that you can do as a bit of a reflection, but if you think about the type of learner you are, I was a disaster when it came to exams. An absolute nightmare. But those courses that were coursework based was much better because, you know, I could kind of build up my points and my credits over the 3 years. It works for a different style of learner. The system that the government is trying to, you know, bring back, it's a very old-fashioned system that just works for the most able and middle-class kids. Which is why academies try to move away from that and just kind of steer the curriculum to benefit all types of learners as well. Yeah, that's a little bit about the key stages. Any questions? All right, schemes of work. Schemes of work is the responsibility of the head of faculty, and they're responsible for making sure that the schemes of work exist in the faculty. And you'll likely arrive on the 2nd of September if you haven't already had them, and your head of faculty will say, right, between now and October half term, this course needs to be covered. Yeah, so you've got 6 or 7 weeks. And I suppose the scheme of work is where everything fits into place. It's over those 6-7 weeks, you've got to think about the variety of activities that you plan for your pupils and the range of pupils that you have in your lesson. Ken, I'm just going to play you a clip from Ken Robinson, who is He's an inspirational, motivational speaker in education, and some of you have probably heard of him. This is an absolutely beautiful clip, and for me it kind of summarises what a scheme of work is and what it should do. And he talks about getting the conditions right for the education of our young people. And I just want you to listen to a few of his words before we go on to look at what a scheme of work should entail.
Education and our lives as human beings are not linear. That's an industrial idea. You start there, you get there. Our lives, if they're anything, are cyclical and kind of recursive. That there are moments of growth, there are seasons of personal growth and development, and seasons that are fallow. And it's not over until it's actually over. And that, the very old, like the very young, still have enormous amounts to find out about themselves if the conditions are right. And I feel this is the great role of the teaching. And when I say moving to a different metaphor, an organic metaphor, I think it's going from an industrial metaphor to back to an agricultural one. Because you think of, a great gardener, great farmer, depends upon plants growing under their care. Otherwise they're out of business. But the irony is that every farmer and gardener knows that you cannot make a plant grow. You cannot do that. You don't stick the roots on and paint the petals and attach the leaves. The plant grows itself. What you do is provide the conditions for growth. And great farmers know what the conditions are and bad ones don't. Great teachers know what the conditions of growth are and bad ones don't. And with bad teaching, all this potential of students shrivels in the face of it. With great teaching, all this stuff starts to flourish and to flower. And that to me is the great gift of teaching, to recognise that growth is possible at any time. Like in Death Valley, in the most deathless place on earth, there's life there, if you know what the conditions are. And the great challenge for teaching, I think, is not just to know your discipline, but to know your students, and to know what the pedagogical ratio is that will make them flourish and become the best thing they can be. And I think that it's not just something for the young, and increasingly it's something we should see as intergenerational, rather than just something that happens at the beginning of our lives. It should endure throughout the whole of it.
I think it's absolutely a beautiful comparison to Ned. That notion of the teacher as the gardener. And so rather than seeing schemes of work as a very clinical, thing, a document, that's exactly what it's about. It's about the opportunity to get the conditions right for all your different groups of learners in and across that 6-7 week period. So what things do you need to include in your schemes of work that meets the needs of those different groups of learners so that they can grow, so that they can learn, so that they can develop. So rather than seeing it as something clinical, it is a real opportunity to bring in all of your kind of pedagogical practice, your knowledge, your experience, what you know about how your pupils learn. And it's about using the scheme of work to actually help them develop. So don't roll your eyes up when you get that scheme of work and think, oh God, but it really is about taking that scheme of work and saying, right, how do I make this work? How do I get the conditions right for my pupils, my groups, to make sure that they make progress with this scheme of work? So it's usually 6-week plans. As I said, it is created by the head of faculty, but it's about you taking it and adopting it. You get lots of support from the head of faculty. There'll be lots of activities, a variety of activities available in many faculties or all faculties and resources that you'll work in. And it's about adopting the ones that fit in to your scheme of work for your pupils. So it's about making some changes to that. And then within that, it's from that scheme of work that you formulate your lesson plan. We're going to do just a few more minutes of speaking, and then I'll hand over to yourselves. So it's you take your schemes of work, and from that then you will develop your lesson plans. How exactly are you going to deliver that over the 6-7 week period? And largely what schools do now in England is after every 6 or 7 weeks there'll be a formal assessment, a school assessment, so you can track. Particularly now that the exam system has gone away from coursework and is mostly based on an end of unit test, you need to get pupils more and more experience of sitting down doing tests. So every 6-7 weeks, they'll probably do a formal assessment, and it's about you thinking about at what point in this scheme of work do they do that formal assessment? Where does it fit? And that's how then you develop your lesson plan. So it's a little bit about what you need to consider then for your, for your lesson plans is this notion of some people call it bell work, some people call it a settling activity, it's a focus. Many people link these two. Many people link these two because in schools now across England, there is an expectation, an Ofsted will judge, that the lesson objective is shared with the pupils. So the idea is it's common sense. If you tell pupils what they're going to learn by the end of the lesson, what you want them to achieve, they're more likely to achieve it. Yeah, so it's about sharing those. And what most teachers now do is they link these. So just by simply having your lesson objectives on the board, think about your behaviour management. You've got 30 pupils arriving, maybe from PE. Maybe they're all hyper after a lunch break how do you settle them down? The very easy and effective way is get them into a routine of getting into your lesson and just simply copying out the lesson objectives and say keywords, for example. Sometimes, if you think back to your EAL learners, you might have it in a different language. You can use Google Translate, sometimes it works, or you can use your you have an assistant, maybe an EAL assistant, or you have a co-ed. Yeah? And it's about using those resources that you have. But that 3-4 minutes where you get them settled, focused, sitting down, you may take a register, yeah? And it's about reminding them that you're in control. But it also then shares with them what they've got to do by the end of the lesson. But you might come up with other activities, other types of bell work that you might get them to do. Little, sentences, pictures. I see sometimes people have pictures displayed on the board and getting them, I've observed some people where there's been pictures about getting kids to think about what that picture might be about. All of those sorts of activities. But essentially, it's about getting that focus so that you then can continue with the business of teaching. Sharing the success criteria. So this is what you want them to achieve by the end of the lesson. This is what it looks like. Then we have what's called the starter. Are you familiar with these sorts of terms? Is this the style that you've been used to in training? Yeah. You've got the development and the processing. They've got different names, but essentially they're all the same. Plenaries are the review and homework. So I'm just going to go quickly through those, and then we're going to look at a few lesson plans just to see. Yeah, but we've talked about that. Lesson objectives, very often skills-based. What you do not want, and what we fall into a trap all the time, is that we have a list of activities on the board. Yeah? So you're going to write this, you're going to complete that. Yeah? But actually, it's about what you want the pupils to know, understand, and be able to do by the end of the lesson. Yeah? Those are 3 key things when an Ofsted inspector or an member of SLT or your head of faculty will be looking for. What do I want my pupils to know by the end of the lesson? What do I want them to understand? And what I want them to be able to do. Those are 3 key things. And for 15 years, that's how I've set out my lesson objectives, because it just breaks it down very, very easily for the pupils. You might see must, should, and could. Are you familiar with that? So what you say the pupils must get by the end of the lesson, should, and could. There used to be an almost and some, but I think it's very, you cap pupils if you say that I only want some of you to achieve this by the end of the lesson. Yeah? Whereas a must, should, and could, you could do this. It's much better than I expect some of you, and I expect all of you to be able to do this. I think there's a subtle difference there, but I think it sends out a clear message to pupils. So there's been lots of moving away from that. I'm not getting you to do this activity because of the success criteria. Then, as I said, what is it what do you want them to have achieved by the end of the lesson? What does it look like? And if you think back to one of the things that's done very effectively in schools now is, when I was in school and somebody asked me to write an essay, I never knew what one looked like. You sit in school and you're asked to write an essay, or write a paragraph on, okay? How do I formulate a paragraph? Yeah? So it's about making sure you show and share with pupils and model to pupils, what a successful paragraph looks like, what a successful essay looks like. And that's an opportunity, might even be in your starter, where you actually say, right, I want you to do an essay on, I'm going to talk about the Battle of Hastings again, but I want you, why did William win? Right? Well, I know why he won. There's all these. How do I formulate that into a cohesive paragraph and a cohesive narrative? Well, what we do and what teachers have got very, very good at doing in England, and I assume here as well, is we will give essays to pupils and say, right, well, this is one that somebody else has done. You might think, well, they're not just going to copy it. Well, no, they're not. What you'll get them to do is, well, where's the starter sentences? What techniques are used in that text? Yeah? So how do you formulate this paragraph? You might write one with them. These are all sorts of techniques and ways of you sharing what a successful outcome looks like to the pupils. And so the first 10 minutes in your lesson plan, as I say, I will share with you our lesson plans. They're all largely the same. It's about the hook. It's about getting the pupils in. It's about the clip. It's about the picture. It's about that hands-on activity in the starter that actually makes the pupils want to learn and develop. And again, it's specific to the different group. But it's the more engaging, active bits, the things that grip you straight away. Because once you have them at the beginning of the lesson, you have them, for the 50, 60 minutes. Really, once you get them in the starter. Sometimes called the overview of a lesson, starter, overview, different names, but essentially it's that first 10 minutes. Then moving to the development is the processing stage. And it's the main part of the lesson. This is where the pupils will spend much of their time. Like today, for example, we started off with a little clip, but most of what we did in session 1 was about you actually dealing with that piece of text and finding out what good and outstanding looks like in a lesson. That's the processing or the development part of the lesson. What you need to make sure you do, though, is you build in a review. You'll see in lesson plans that I'm going to share with you in a minute that there's a review part to lessons, and that's an opportunity for you to do some verbal assessment. Yeah? So you might stop them, check that they understand what it is that you're asking them to do, and you might need to just further explain to them so that they're clear. But essentially, this is where you give the pupils the independence during the development of the processing stage. Then the review or the plenary at the end of either a lesson or at the end of an activity. Some of the best teaching I've seen and observed is where after 15, 20 minutes they finish one activity, there's a review before they move into the next one, because you can check their understanding. You then, if a few pupils haven't quite got it, your 20 pupils can get on with the next stage of the lesson, so you can go and be more hands-on with a small group of pupils, and reiterate and reinforce the learning. So the plenaries can be built in, or the reviews can be built in throughout the lesson. Homework. Homework and marking are two that I don't know. It's so difficult to get this right. There's so many reasons why people should do homework, but it's very important in your lesson plans that you build in and through your scheme of work that you think, what is it that you want the pupils to do when they leave? How is it going to help? How is it going to extend their knowledge, their understanding, the depth of what they do for you in that lesson? How is it really going to help? Very often what we see for homework is an old scrappy sheet that's handed out, and you just think, God, if somebody handed that to me, I wouldn't do it. It's always the tag on. But if you get it right, it can really benefit you, and make sure, because 6 weeks goes by very quickly. Very often you think, God, I haven't covered half of what my head of faculty has asked me to cover in those 6 weeks. So, you think cleverly, well, what can they do at home? What can they do in a homework club or whatever that they may not be able to do? So those are some of the key parts to a lesson plan through a scheme of work. I have here 5 lesson plans, a mixture. And what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm just going to ask you to spend about 10 or 12 minutes and just going through them. Just read through these lesson plans, and you can either fill this out or just use it as a guide, but there's some key questions along the top. And so it's just asking you to think, do you think the lesson plan, and they're A to E, do you think it describes an outstanding lesson? If so, why? So think back to your criteria that you looked at this morning. Do you think that through this plan you could see rapid and sustained progress, for example? Does the lessons plan set high expectations? Does it take into account developing literacy, numeracy, And also, how could it be improved? Yeah, just the last question. How could the lesson be improved? And I promise this is the last activity that I'm going to get you to do today. You'll be pleased to hear. So if you spend about 10 or 12 minutes, just so you can see what a variety of lesson plans look like. Okay? A to E. I hope they're all anonymous. I tried to get all names on it. I lost the memory, yeah? An outstanding lesson plan looks like, and 9 times out of 10 it's in the delivery, and it's always mostly successful if it is well planned. I said there were 2 outstanding and 1 inadequate, so there's 2 1s and a 4. Did anybody find any one that they thought, yeah, this feels like it could be an outstanding lesson? One of them is the best lesson I've ever watched, by the way, in my current skill. The best lesson I've ever seen. English. No? E. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that lesson plan, I think, because, first of all, look at the learning objectives. They're linked very clearly to the success criteria from the exam. Yeah, I think that was one of the key things in that lesson. So the pupils knew exactly what they needed to do to get into a particular band as they use at GCSE. Also, the handing back of mock papers, for example, was something that was very key to the success, because the pupils could see, what they need to do, what they need to build on. And also, you may or may not have picked up on the level of independence. The support table, did anybody? I mean, to actually have that in a lesson, and the pupils have the confidence to kind of, when they needed it, to go over there and kind of garner that support when it was appropriate, just was absolutely fantastic. Anything else about the lesson that you thought it was good or outstanding? Anybody think it was less than good? And so what was good or outstanding about it? Anything else in it that kind of struck you?
The differentiation, they specified exactly what the support teacher is going to be doing specifically. Lessons
have gone down as a 3 because the support teacher's been sitting in there, writing for the child, for example. I mean, I don't like to compare our support staff as a sheet of paper, but they are a resource in your lesson that you need to use as effectively as a video, as a book, as a card sort. They are another resource. It's about using your learning support very effectively, and I think that was key in this lesson as well. The other outstanding lesson is the PE lesson. So it's not always in the planning. But again, the level of detail in terms of the objectives, and they do have to. Is there any PE teachers? They do have to look at the academic and the practical objectives as well, which was very, very good. I suppose in that one, essentially, you probably did need to see it. But see how she brought in the mini plenaries all the time, reviewing, pairing up the more able pupils with the less able pupils. The more able pupils that actually have the responsibility for supporting, that's a great way to differentiate, especially get your more able learners to work and coach in PE, or to work in mixed ability groups in other lessons. So that was the other outstanding one. Inadequate?
C.
Yeah, clearly. There was no thought went into that lesson. Well, actually in the delivery, it was clear that there was no thought went into that lesson. That was just a run-of-the-mill. What anybody think of the music lesson? What did anybody think about that? The trouble with that one was, that was one of those ones that would have been outstanding under the old regime, if you like, before, that's kind of the one-offs. The trouble with this person was, in the lesson, that was, the plan was outstanding. The lesson was good, because the pupils hadn't made that sustained progress over time. This was a one-off lesson. Does that make sense? The rest, A, you walked into that lesson and you could tell that goes on every single time those kids are being taught. And you know that as soon as you go in. You know that. And that's why it's about overtime. It's about overtime and planning for overtime, planning for the differentiation, making sure that all pupils in your lesson are making progress. Any other comments about any of that? The lesson plans will essentially be the same no matter what school you go to, and we have a discussion about whether or not you can change them. Most schools will have a format and they'll expect you to just stick to that and bring in other aspects to it, but there will be an agreed format, just because most schools want a consistent approach to planning. And there'll be a variety of expectations. So, you may go to a school where they'll expect you to do a lesson plan every week. You might go to some schools where you won't fill in a formal lesson plan. An old school that I worked in, NPTs were observed by an SLT every single week. I think most people that won't be the case, and it's largely half-termly or a couple of times. My advice is see it as supportive. Don't see it as a threat or a fear. Most schools in England now, you've been to them, are all kind of, glass doors, windows. It's all very open and transparent. Teachers in and out. We do climate walks, learning walks. So don't be surprised if you're teaching one Monday morning and the head teacher walks in and sits down and starts chatting to a pupil and finds out about what's going on in the lesson. That is standard. You'll get used to it, and you will. And it's not as a threat, but it's a way for us as SLT to kind of monitor in a realistic way what's going on in the lessons. Rather than me saying, I'm going to observe you 2 weeks' time of sugar. I spend the next 2 weeks planning for that one lesson, forgetting all of the other lessons that I'm going to deliver over the next 2 weeks. So it's just, and actually you find out more about what the progress that pupils are making through those learning walks than very often through the formal observations. But my advice is, don't get bogged down in all of this. Don't let any of this kind of put you off what essentially is an amazing career. I don't know whether you've taken the decision to go to England, whether you've been forced to, or whether you've always wanted to go and teach in England. I don't know. In my case, I suppose it's a bit of both, really. But I don't use it as just a fantastic year, as a fantastic opportunity for you to learn and develop. You get fantastic support throughout your NPT year. You really will get an opportunity to develop. I bet you at the end of the year, many of you will be offered positions of responsibility to make sure that they keep you and secure you, and they'll be begging Kathleen to sign you over so we can keep you on as permanent members of staff, because that's essentially why we get involved in this. But if you think back to where we started today, it's always about keeping your ideals, your goals, your passions for young people alive. And I don't know if you've ever seen this clip, Taylor Malley. You'll probably see it many times over your career. But it's when he talks about being a teacher, and I think he's in conversation with a solicitor, and the solicitor is saying, well, what exactly do you do as a teacher? I'm beginning to mock the profession. And I think he, more eloquently than I ever could, sums up exactly what it is that we do every single day as teachers in the classroom. So I'll just leave you with this.
He says the problem with teachers is, what's a kid going to learn from someone who decided his best option in life is to become a teacher? He reminds the other dinner guests that it's true what they say about teachers, that those who can do, and those who can't teach. I decided to bite my tongue instead of his, and resist the urge to remind the other dinner guests that it's also
Oh God, you just want to clap at that, don't you?
So, good luck. I'm sure you'll make a massive difference in the schools that you work with. I hope I haven't bored you stiff today, but hopefully it's given you a flavour about what you face in the next 12 months. Thank you very much.
No, thanks, Phil. That was brilliant. Thanks very much. Right, so, just, is there anything that you want to ask about the move over, or, I mean, actually, one of the things, I'll run through a couple of wee bits on here first, after you leave. So, as John was saying there before, you come over and your class is an NQT, so it's a newly qualified teacher. And then you go through the induction programme, and at the end of the year, your class is QTS, which is a qualified teaching status. And you get the QTS when you've done your full year, when you've got your full probation, not full probation, I can't even speak anymore, when you've done your full registration with the Teaching Council in Ireland, then you get the full QTS in England, so you'll get that at the end of the year. So far, you'll have had your accommodation, so has most people got their accommodation organised for going over? Has anybody not got their accommodation sorted? Just one? Then come and see me at my price. I'll have a chat with you at the end. Anybody else not got their accommodation? Right. If you haven't got accommodation, come and have a chat with me then. But have the office been speaking to you about it? Yeah. Okay, so do you know whereabouts are you moving to? Is it
Tunbridge, Kent.
Tunbridge, Kent? Isle Sheffield. Okay, there's a few close to Isle Sheffield. Yeah, so have you got all your accommodation? Have you got room for one more? Room for a wee? They will make sure that you're sharing with them anyway. And what about yourself? Sunday, sorry. Well, there's loads of positions, there's loads of places in Surrey, so don't worry about it. You can do what you share with other people as well. So the police checks, I know you've had to go through like screeds of writing that you've, because we've had to have your PVG check, so your disclosure police check. We also you get your bank account. So you won't get your bank account yet until you've got. Have you heard about how you get your bank account? Have we gone over that? Okay. So on your bank account, you don't get a bank account until you've got your address. So as soon as you go over with your address, you go into any of the high street banks and you'll be able to open up a bank account. Yeah?
I already applied for mine online to have an address to move into, and
Right.
so all the forms are being sent to the address. So it'll be there when I arrive, and then I just have to bring it to line.
Oh, well, do you know, actually, Kira, could you speak to Irene about that? Irene, because I didn't realise that you can do all that online. I didn't know that. So if you could tell Irene and then just share that with everybody else, or maybe just hand out an email over all the information, Irene will pass that around. If you can do that online, that's great. You can. Well, is this coming from Northern Ireland? Yeah, well, Northern Ireland you'll be fine with, but it's just if you go to the Southern Ireland, you don't want to use that one because you've got like your exchange rate, so you're really getting hit a couple of times when you're doing it. When you do come over, don't worry, if you haven't got your bank account straight away, you still will be paid, which is always nice to hear, but we'll just pay it into your current bank account. So it will go into, if you've got an account in the Republic, we'll pay it into that. As I say, you don't want to keep that going for too long because you don't want to be hit with the exchange rates. But as soon as you're over, there'll be no problem at all opening up the bank account. National insurance number, do you know what the national insurance number to? Okay, well, when you go over there, you do need the national insurance number, and as soon as you arrive, you'll be making an appointment with the Job Centre Plus, and then you just go in. And actually, sometimes the schools, I think, John, your school did that a couple of times online as well. We can't, as an agency, do that for you, but the school can do that for you. So if you speak to maybe your head of department within the school, if not, it's not a problem. Again, you'll get an email or a letter out from the company, and it'll tell you how you do it. But you just, I know in Ireland, I mean, there was horrifying stories. They're saying, oh my God, if you don't get your NI number, you're going to get 50% of your wages taken off you straight away. That won't happen at all. It won't make any difference to you. I mean, it's negligible if you put onto emergency tax and you get that back anyway. So you don't need to do it on day one that you arrive, but try not to leave it too much longer than a couple of weeks or so. But it's not, you're not really getting 50% of all your stuff taken away. If you haven't got accommodation yet, or when you're moving over, because you're students and you're going to be skint most of you, so if you're coming over and you're a wee bit strapped for cash, just give us a shout, because we can offer interest-free loans for you. So if you've been over and you've got your deposit, even if you've paid your deposit but it's leaving you a bit skint, give us a shout. We'll do the deposit for you. So if it's £400, £400, we'll pay that, and then we'll just take it back over a period of time. Normally that's taken back over maybe about 6 weeks, so it's about £50 a week. If you want that extended to 10 weeks or 12 weeks, then again, that's not a problem at all. But it's just really to give you wee help when you first go over. And the support. So Irene is, this is the first time that we've actually had a welfare officer, because we've got so many of you starting. As we're saying, there's about 25 of you in Scotland, there's going to be about 150 around in England. So Irene's job is nothing else other than to make sure that you've got a social life and that you network with each other. It's the best job in the world. So as I said before, so Irene will be talking to you through the Twitter, through Facebook. We're going to have a forum on the website that you can come in and again share your resources. You know, if there's two people working doing history, then share your lesson planning, you know, with each other. If there's two people doing P2 or P3, then one of you do numeracy stuff, the other one does literacy, do the lesson plans, and again share them together. So really just, you know, go online. But if you've got any problems at all, whether it's, or not even problems, if you've got something great to share, if you've had a fabulous day and you've had a great lesson and it's all gone really well, email Irene and then she'll pass it round to everybody else. Okay? So Pat, did you want to add on anything about moving over?
Just I've been very fascinated with the day actually, and how the group has come together also. And you're not sitting, you're all kind of mixed around a bit now, which is a big difference from this morning. Much more relaxed day, and there's so much information you got, knowledge, and I've got loads of stuff from John too. Because I'm going through a kind of a new process like Irene here and helping out you teach. So it's been fascinating for me just to listen to some of the things that I would not have known from a teacher's background. I'm sure you've learned a lot today, but there's a lot of knowledge going around there, and you sort of kind of have to try to put it into some sort of categories and establish it for yourself. But that will come over time. Just one thing I want to say, I don't know if you're involved in sport, what type of sport you're involved. I know Ireland's got this fantastic, our national game, and Gaelic football and hurling and so on. I was talking to a young man from Clare, and he's desperate to get a club over in England when he goes over to keep up his skill. And we do have connections. I have a great connection with a guy in London, Seamus Clarice from Donegal, but he knows all the people in the GA over there. He runs Chirconnell Gales, and if you need that contact, I'll pass it on, and I'll talk to Seamus. And the easy way is to phone up the chairman and say, listen, I play a bit, can I come down to the club? It's a fantastic way of networking. There's also soccer clubs and other clubs and so on over there. We can build up maybe a bit of a network around that. There's some context for you. It's nice to be involved. It's also nice to, if you're into sport, it's great to connect with students, as you know, talking, what did you do last week? Well, I was up that mountain and I was hanging off with some sort of thing, and here's a picture of me. Wow, you're an ordinary guy, or an ordinary girl. This is unbelievable. And I guess they're talking, and it's a way into their lives too, you know, and they make that connection. So maybe that's something to think about. Just to wish you all luck, and take ownership of it. Take ownership of your own thing. Some of you, it's like a team here, isn't it? It's like a football team at that point, but something you might want to go off in your own tangent and do your own thing, and that's free to do that too. But I'm fascinated with the support this in place now. I wish I had that when I went over. Wow, it would be fantastic. And I sat in a house for about a year and I was afraid to go out. I had to be on the Thursday night anyway. I wasn't allowed out because I was a footballer. And B, when I went out, I was afraid the manager would see me, so I didn't go out. But once you get out and get in the mix with people and that, and you go into every direction, it's fantastic. And it's exciting, and I think there's a lot of anxiety to sort of, you're not as nervous now as you were this morning. Yeah? So that's great to you. So well done to you all, and thanks, John. I enjoyed it. Great stuff. And good luck to you all.
Right, thanks. So has anybody got anything that they're worrying about at the moment? No? Well, so good luck to you all. And so when you're down in the pub, Ken, I insist that I'm on all of the events. Thank you very much. And feel free to buy me a drink when naturally I do arrive. I'm quite happy with that. Right, what I would ask you to do, if you don't mind.